Hello, survivors. Thanks for joining us today. Before we begin, if you enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot. Also, tell us in the comments which city you're listening from. It's great to see how far our community reaches. Now, let's start the story. 30,000 feet over the Midwest, the world looks deceptively peaceful. Miles of farmland stitched together like a green and gold quilt, puffs of white clouds drifting lazily below. That's how it looked around 1400 Zulu time, just after. Lunch service wrapped up on Flight 718 from LAX to Chicago O'Hare. I'm Captain Frank Miller, 25 years flying everything from puddle jumpers to this Boeing 767 for Amerisky Airlines. Seen my share of turbulence, engine trouble, medically, emergencies, even a near miss over Denver once. But nothing prepares you for the day the world ends while you're 7 miles above it. My first officer, Ken, was handling the controls. A good kid, sharp, steady. I was reviewing the weather forecast for our approach into O'Hare. Standard EL. Summer thunderstorms predicted. Nothing unusual. The cabin behind us was quiet, passengers lulled by the engine drone, watching movies, maybe napping. Just another routine flight across the heartland. The first sign of trouble came over the comms, but not from air traffic control. It was another aircraft, a panicked voice cutting through the frequency. Mayday, Mayday, United 451. We have hostile passengers. They're attacking, biting. Cabin breach imminent. Request immediate div. The transmission cut off into static. Ken looked over at me, eyes wide. Hostile passengers? Biting? Probably a hijacking attempt, misinterpreted, I said, trying to sound calmer than I felt. That word, biting, sent an odd chill down my spine. I keyed the mic. Chicago Center, Amerisky 718. Did you copy that Mayday transmission from United 451? Silence. Unusual. O'Hare approach is one of the busiest airspaces in the world. Silence is never a good sign. Chicago Center, Amerisky 718 radio check. I repeated, more forcefully. Static. Then a different voice, shaky, not standard ATC protocol. Amerisky 718. O'Hare is code red. I repeat, O'Hare is code red. Facility compromised. All. Inbound traffic divert immediately. Nearest viable alternate, stand by. More static than a scream cut short. The frequency went dead. Code red? Facility compromised? What the hell was going on down there? Ken was staring at me, his face pale. Sir, fly the plane, Ken, I ordered, my own training kicking in. Aviate, navigate, communicate. Right now, aviate was key. Keep her steady. I'll try Indianapolis Center. I switched frequencies. Indy Center, Amerisky 718, requesting diversion, previous frequency unresponsive. O'Hare, reporting code red. Again, silence, then a frantic voice. 718, divert immediately. All major airfields reporting mass casualty incidents. Indianapolis International is, oh God, they're on the tarmac. They're static, dead air. Okay, not good. Major airfields compromised. Hijacking seemed less likely now. That word again. Biting. Mass casualties. I pulled up the emergency broadcast frequencies on the secondary radio. Nothing but static or automated EAS alerts advising citizens to shelter in place and avoid contact with agitated individuals. Sir, Ken said, his voice trembling slightly. Now. He pointed out the cockpit window. Below us, streaking across the farmland, were military jets. F-16s moving fast, heading east toward Chicago, toward Indianapolis. Not standard flight patterns. They were flying low, combat-ready. My blood ran cold. This wasn't isolated. This wasn't a hijacking. This was something nationwide, something bad enough to scramble the Air Force and shut down major airports within minutes. A chime sounded from the cabin. Flight attendant call button. I hesitated, then toggled the intercom. Flight deck. Captain, came the strained voice of Laura, our lead flight attendant. We have a situation in the aft galley. Passenger collapsed, convulsing. Another passenger trying to help got bitten badly. There it was. Aboard our plane. It wasn't just happening on the ground. Laura. I kept my voice level, professional. Lock down the aft galley immediately. Isolate the individuals involved. Use restraints if necessary. How many passengers near the incident? Maybe a dozen saw it, Captain. People are starting to panic. Keep them calm. Tell them it's a medical emergency, contained. Standard procedure. Ken, you have the controls. I'm going back there. Sir, is that wise? Ken protested. We have an unknown situation aboard, Ken, Bites reported. Aggression. Sounds familiar, right? I need to assess. You keep this bird level and start looking for any airfield, military or civilian, off the main routes, that isn't reporting code red. Check emergency frequencies for military safe zones. Anything. I unstrapped, grabbing the emergency crash from behind my seat. Standard equipment, never thought I'd need it inside the cabin. As I opened the cockpit door, the murmur from the main cabin hit me. Fear has a specific sound, a specific smell. It was thick in the recycled air. Passengers were looking around nervously, whispering, some craning their necks toward the back. Laura met me near the forward galley, her face pale. Captain, the passenger who collapsed. He stopped convulsing. Now he's trying to bite the attendant who's restraining him. And the man he bit, high fever, delirium, started getting aggressive before I locked the galley down. How long ago was the bite? Maybe 10 minutes, she confirmed my worst fear. Fast, incredibly fast transmission. Okay, standard turbulence excuse isn't going to hold much longer, I said grimly. We need to isolate the aft section completely. Anyone else showing symptoms? Anyone acting erratic? A few people complaining of sudden fever, headaches, she reported. I told them it was the recycled air, offered water. Good. Keep doing that. Quietly move anyone showing symptoms toward the rear lavatories if you can do it without causing more panic. Use the service carts to barricade the aisle just forward of the last galley. You, me, and any crew strong enough will hold this line. Anyone turns, I hefted the crash axe. We handle it. Her eyes widened, but she nodded. She was ex-air, Force 2 a medic. She understood. We moved back through the cabin trying to project calm. Just a minor medical issue, folks. Please remain seated. The lies felt heavy on my tongue. Reaching the aft galley, we could hear snarling sounds and heavy thuds from behind the locked door. Using drink carts and luggage from the overhead bins, we quickly built a crude barricade across the aisle, sealing off the last 10 rows. Passengers nearby were getting frantic now, demanding answers. An older man grabbed my arm. What's going? Joey and my wife's back there in the restroom. Sir, we have a contagious medical emergency. I lied again. We have to contain it. Your wife will be safer remaining where she is for now. He didn't look convinced, but fear kept him in his seat. Then the lights flickered. Emergency oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling, dangling uselessly. The plane's auxiliary power sputtered. Captain, Ken's voice yelled over the intercom, cutting through the rising panic in the cabin. Engine 1 flame out. We've lost hydraulics on the starboard side. Something hit us. Hit us? At 30,000 feet? I pushed through the barricade, running back toward the cockpit. Laura, close behind with the first aid kit. The scene in the main cabin was devolving into chaos as the plane lurched. People screaming, crying, praying. Back in the cockpit, Ken wrestled with the controls. Warning lights flashed everywhere. Engine 1 failure. Hydraulic failure. Cabin. Pressure dropping. Outside the window, smoke streamed from the starboard engine. What hit us? I demanded, strapping back into my seat. Don't know. Came out of nowhere. No radar contact. Ken fought the yoke, trying to keep us level with only one engine and failing hydraulics. We were losing altitude fast. Sir, we're going down. Below, the patchwork quilt of the Midwest wasn't farmland anymore. It was endless, dense forest. No roads, no towns, just trees stretching to the horizon. Somewhere in northern Illinois or maybe southern Wisconsin by now. Miles from any runway, any civilization. Mayday, 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 I broadcast on the emergency frequency, knowing it was probably useless. Amerisky 718. Dual engine failure after suspected mid-air collision, losing altitude rapidly, approximate position. I rattled off our last known coordinates. Immediate assistance required. Only static answered. The plane bucked violently. Alarms shrieked. Below, the trees rushed up to meet us. This was it. Just like the Cessna crash years ago that had almost ended my flying career before it began. Only this time, the world waiting below wasn't just wilderness. It was wilderness infested with whatever horrors were consuming the cities. We were falling out of the sky on day one of the zombie apocalypse. The impact was devastating. One moment we were fighting the controls, the next, there was only the deafening roar of shearing metal, the groaning protest of the airframe giving way, and the violent stomach-churning sensation of tumbling end over end. Trees ripped through the fuselage like paper. Then, sudden jarring silence, broken only by the hiss of escaping air and the crackle of small fires starting somewhere in the wreckage. Miraculously, the cockpit section remained mostly intact, though crushed and angled steeply against the forest floor. Ken was slumped against the controls, unconscious, bleeding from a head wound. I checked my own status, bruised, battered, ears ringing but somehow functional. The crash axe lay on the floor near my feet. Behind me, in what remained of the first-class cabin, groans and whimpers replaced the earlier screams. Survivors. How many? I couldn't tell. The fuselage had ripped open aft of the wings, exposing the mangled cabin to the elements. Smoke curled up from the wreckage. First priority, fire suppression. I grabbed the cockpit fire extinguisher, spraying foam on the smoldering insulation and sparking wires near the instrument panel. Then, check on Ken. Pulse was weak, thready, but present. Head wound looked bad. He needed immediate medical attention we couldn't provide. Next, the passengers. I kicked open the jammed cockpit door, peering into the debris-strewn forward cabin. Maybe 10 or 12 people stirring, injured, dazed. Laura, the lead flight attendant, was among them, helping a woman with a broken arm. "Captain," she looked, relieved to see me. "We need to get everyone out. It could still explode." "Assess injuries," I ordered, falling back on command instinct. "Anyone who can walk helps the others. Move away from the main wreckage upwind." I pointed toward a small clearing visible through a tear in the fuselage. As survivors began extricating themselves, helping each other through the twisted metal, I did a quick sweep. Most injuries seemed manageable. Cuts, bruises, maybe some broken bones. But then I saw him, the man who'd been bitten in the aft galley incident before the crash. He lay half-pinned under a section of collapsed ceiling, body still, eyes open, and vacant, skin gray. He wasn't dead, he was turned, and he was watching us, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Before I could react, he lunged, teeth snapping, grabbing at the leg of a teenage boy trying to crawl past him. The boy screamed. I brought the crash axe down hard, severing the infected's head. The body went limp. The immediate threat neutralized, but the implication was terrifying. The infection wasn't just on the plane. It had survived the crash. How many others back in the aft section had turned? How many were now crawling out of the wreckage into the surrounding forest? "Everyone out, now!" I yelled, urgency replacing the earlier command calm. "We've got infected from the plane." Panic threatened to take hold again, but Laura, bless her professionalism, helped maintain order, guiding the injured toward the clearing. We counted heads. 14 survivors, including Ken, still unconscious, carried by 2 other men. Laura, myself, and 9 passengers, ranging from an elderly couple to the teenage boy who'd nearly been bitten. A small, battered, terrified group stranded miles from anywhere in a world gone mad. We gathered in the clearing as dusk began to settle. The forest loomed around us, dark and menacing. The wreckage of Flight 718 smoked silently behind us, a broken metal carcass. Distant sounds echoed through the trees, not just the familiar wilderness noises, but occasional screams, unnatural groans, and sporadic gunfire, confirming the apocalypse wasn't confined to the cities. "Okay," I said, addressing the small group. Here's the situation. We've crashed in remote wilderness, radio's dead, ELT's dead. Rescue isn't coming anytime soon. We have injuries, minimal supplies, and... I paused, letting the weight sink in. We know those things. The infected are out there. Some were on the plane. They survived the crash. Others might be drawn by the crash itself. Fear rippled through the group. The businessman who'd been carrying Ken spoke up, his voice shaking. "So what do we do, Captain?" "We survive," I said, simply. "Tonight we secure this clearing, build a fire, post guards, treat the wounded as best we can. Laura, inventory the first aid supplies. Anyone with medical training?" An elderly woman raised a trembling hand. "Retired nurse," she said quietly. "Name's Helen." "Good. Helen, you work with Laura. Ken needs attention first." I looked at the others. "We need firewood. Lots of it. And listen, stay alert. Anything approaches this clearing, anything that looks wrong or sounds wrong, you yell. Noise is our enemy and our alarm." As people dispersed to gather wood or tend to the injured, I took the baseball bat guy, whose name was apparently Rick, and the teenage boy, Sam, to scout the perimeter. The crash had carved a path through the trees, creating a debris field. That extended maybe 100 yards. Beyond that, dense forest. We found tracks near the edge of the woods, large paw prints. Bear, wolf. Adding animal predators to the mix wasn't exactly comforting. More disturbingly, we found other tracks. Bare human footprints mixed with shuffling drag marks leading away from the crash site. Infected. They were out there, wandering. We established a rough perimeter, using the fuselage wreckage as partial. Cover on one side and building up the fire on the other. Laura and Helen did their best with Ken and the other injured cleaning wounds, splinting fractures using ripped cloth and sturdy branches. The supplies from the emergency kit were meager. Antiseptic wipes, bandages, gauze, tape, painkillers. Not nearly enough for serious trauma. Night fell quickly in the forest. The temperature dropped. Our fire pushed back the darkness, casting flickering shadows that played tricks on tired eyes. We organized watches, 2 people at a time, armed with the crash axe, the tire iron I'd pulled from the wreck after all, Rick's baseball bat, and a couple of hefty tree branches. Pathetic arsenal. I took the first watch with Rick. The sounds of the forest closed in. Unfamiliar rustles, snaps, strange calls I couldn't identify. Every shadow seemed to hold a threat. Were they watching us, circling, waiting? The psychological pressure was immense. Around 0300 during my second watch rotation with Sam, we heard it. A low groan from the darkness beyond the firelight. Then, another, closer. Sam gripped his branch tighter, knuckles white. I raised the crash axe, heart pounding. Shapes emerged from the trees, 3 of them. Shambling, jerky movements, pale skin ghastly in the firelight, milky eyes fixed on our small circle of survivors. Passengers from the back of the plane. They'd turned, and they'd found us. "Contact," I yelled, hoping to wake the others without causing mass panic. The infected broke into their unnatural run, ignoring the fire, drawn by the prey. The scene dissolved into primal fear and brutal violence. Rick swung his bat, connecting with a sickening crunch. The elderly nurse, Helen, surprisingly, grabbed a burning log from the fire, shoving it into the face of another infected, sending it screeching back into the darkness, face ablaze. I brought the axe down on the third one, again and again, until it stopped moving. But more were coming, drawn by the noise, the light, the smell of blood. 6 more emerged from the trees, then 10. We were being overrun. "Back to the fuselage," I shouted, grabbing Sam. "Use it as a choke point." We retreated, forming a tight knot near a ripped-open section of the plane. The space was confined, limiting their approach to 1 or 2 at a time. We fought like cornered animals. Axe, tire iron, bat, burning logs, anything we could swing. People screamed. People fell. I saw the businessman go down, teeth sinking into his leg. Laura dragged him back, trying to help, but it was too late. He started convulsing. Laura didn't hesitate. She used a piece of jagged metal from the wreckage. Another soul lost. We were losing ground, ammunition. We desperately needed guns. Ken stirred, groaning, semi-conscious. Useless. My broken arm felt like it was on fire. Sam was fighting bravely beside me, but he was just a kid. Helen used the last of the antiseptic on a deep gash on Rick's arm. Just as I thought we were. Completely finished, a new sound cut through the chaos. Not infected groans, but barking. Loud, aggressive barking coming from the woods, followed by a single booming gunshot. The infected hesitated, heads turning toward the new sound. A figure emerged from the trees, silhouetted against the faint pre-dawn light. Tall, broad-shouldered, carrying a rifle. Beside him, a large German shepherd strained at a leash, barking ferociously at the infected. "Get clear!" the figure yelled, his voice a commanding bark that cut through the moans. He raised the rifle and fired again, a clean headshot dropping an infected that was clambering over the fuselage toward us. Hope, sharp and unexpected, pierced through my exhaustion and terror. Another survivor, armed, with a dog. Maybe. We weren't completely screwed after all, but who was he? And could we trust him? In this new world, the living could be just as dangerous as the dead. The stranger moved with practiced efficiency, his rifle barking methodically, each shot finding its mark, dropping infected with clean headshots. The German shepherd beside him was a whirlwind of controlled fury, darting in, hamstringing the shambling creatures, creating openings for the man's shots. They worked together like a well-oiled machine, thinning the horde pressing against our flimsy fuselage defense. "Who? Are you?" I yelled over the din, still keeping the axe ready. Trust didn't come easy anymore. "Name's Matt. My dog's Max," he shouted back, dropping another infected. "Saw your crash flare from my cabin. Looks like you folks ran into some trouble." Understatement of the century. With Matt and Max drawing their attention and thinning their numbers, the immediate pressure eased. The remaining infected seemed confused, their primitive drive momentarily disrupted by this new, efficient threat. "We need to move," Matt called, reloading his rifle with practiced speed. "More will come." My cabin's about 2 clicks north of here. Fortified, supplies, safer than this wreck. I looked at our battered group. Ken was still barely conscious. Rick was bleeding heavily from his arm. Several others had minor injuries. Moving them to kilometers over a mile through zombie-infested wilderness seemed impossible. But staying here was certain death. "Some are badly injured," I relayed. "We can't move fast." "Got a game travois back at the cabin," Matt replied instantly. "Can rig something similar here if you've got tarps. Max can help cover us." He scanned our group, his eyes sharp, assessing. "All right, you two," he pointed. "Me and Rick, keep these things busy, don't waste ammo unless you have to. Use melee. Everyone else gather anything useful from the wreck. Water, food, blankets, that medkit. 5 minutes, then we move." His decisiveness, his confidence, was infectious. We fell into action. Rick, despite his injury, wielded his bat effectively. I used the axe. Sam, the teenager, found another heavy pipe. We formed a tight semicircle, holding back the remaining dozen or so infected trying to reach the fuselage, while Laura, Helen, and the less injured passengers scavenged desperately. Matt, meanwhile, worked with incredible speed, using salvaged seatbelts, torn fuselage panels, and sturdy branches to rig a makeshift travois, reinforcing it with duct tape from his own pack. He seemed to have done this before. Prepper? Ex-military like me? Didn't matter. Right now, he was our lifeline. "Ready," Laura called, holding up 2 salvaged emergency water jugs and a bag filled with sealed airline snacks. Helen had restocked the medkit. "Load Ken onto the travois," Matt ordered. "Strongest 2 pull, I'll take rear guard with Max. Axeman," he nodded at me. "You take point. Bat guy, kid, stick close behind him. Nurses, injured, stay in the middle. Move quiet, move fast." Leaving the relative safety of the wreckage felt like jumping into ice water. The forest seemed to press in, every shadow menacing. Matt used his rifle sparingly, only when an infected got too close or blocked our path directly. Max was incredible, a silent shadow darting ahead, giving low growls to warn of unseen threats, circling back to protect our flanks. My respect for the dog and his handler grew with every step. The journey was a nightmare trek, hauling the travois over roots and rocks, constantly scanning the trees, moving as quickly as our injured allowed. Twice we had to hide, pressing ourselves into thick underbrush as small groups of infected shuffled past, somehow missing us. My broken arm throbbed with every jolt, but the painkiller Matt had given me earlier, military grade from the look of the injector, kept the worst at bay. Just as the first true light of dawn began filtering through the trees, casting the forest in pale, ghostly hues, Matt held up a hand. "We're close." Ahead, nestled in a small clearing overlooking a stream, was a sturdy log cabin. Smoke curled faintly from a stone chimney. Reinforced shutters covered the windows, and a high, sturdy-looking fence made of sharpened logs surrounded the small yard. It looked like something out of a frontier survival manual. Matt signaled, and Max let out two sharp barks. The cabin door opened, and a woman appeared, holding a crossbow leveled steadily at us. She scanned our group, her eyes lingering on Matt, then nodded and lowered the weapon. "Took you long enough," she called out, her voice carrying easily in the morning air. "Coffee's hot, stew's simmering. Get yourselves inside before you draw the neighbors." We stumbled into the cabin, collapsing onto benches and the floor, the scent of wood smoke, coffee, and simmering stew unbelievably welcoming after 12 hours of hell. The woman, who introduced herself as Beth, Matt's wife, immediately started helping Laura and Helen with the injured, her movements as calm and efficient as Matt's. The cabin was a prepper's dream. Well-stocked pantry, wood stove, solar panels on the roof feeding battery banks, a rainwater collection system, maps, tools, weapons mounted on the walls. Matt and Beth had clearly been ready for this, maybe for years. "How bad is it?" I asked. Matt, accepting a steaming mug of coffee. "Out there, I mean." He shrugged, checking his rifle. "Bad. Heard chatter on the shortwave all night. Started on the coast, spread inland like a damn plague. Cities fell first. Too many people, too close together. Military's trying to set up cordons, safe zones, but they're losing ground fast." He looked out the reinforced window at the sun rising over the Wyoming wilderness. "This isn't just an outbreak, Carter. This is the collapse." I looked at the small group of survivors huddled in the cabin. The injured pilot, the scared passengers, the retired nurse, the teenage boy, the capable flight attendant, the resourceful prepper couple, a random collection of humanity thrown together by catastrophe. We had survived the crash, survived the first night, but Matt was right. This was just the beginning. 12 hours. That's all it took to shatter the world. Flying at 30,000 feet hadn't saved us. It had just delayed the inevitable crash landing into reality. Now, stranded in the Wyoming wilderness, surrounded by the dead, our survival depended not just on supplies or skills, but on each other. We were alive, for now. But as the sun rose on day 2, the question wasn't just how we would survive, but what kind of world we were surviving into. The only certainty was the fight ahead.